Today we have a very special guest here with us. Honestly, this man needs no introduction. However, to all our viewers, I'd still like to tell you a few things about Jeevan. He's been as high as 64 in the ATP doubles rankings. He's been as high as 293 in the ATP singles ranking. He brings in a lot of energy on the court. He's bold. He's dynamic. He's quite charming as well. I'm sure the ladies would agree with me on this.
There's only
A lot
one
of people
lady,
are
man. No
also
more ladies and all. There's only one lady.
not anymore, not anymore. Yes, people are also quite fond of your commentary. So, Jeevan, it's great to see you and welcome to Aces and Masala.
Thanks, Parikshit. Thanks, Sid. First of all, guys, I wanna commend you guys. I think you all are doing a great job on Aces with Masala. I've seen a few episodes. Sid and I have spoken a little bit about commentary in India, and I think you guys are doing a really good job. Not just talking about tennis, but anytime a tennis player is talking about something outside of forehands and backhands, I commend it because you got to show your personality, and I think that's the only way the game gets to recognize anything. Because no one's gonna remember your shots at the end of the day. They're gonna remember what you said and what your personality was like. So I think you guys are on the right track with this stuff. Commend you guys for it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's the whole point of
Thanks,
Aces and
thanks.
Masala. We trying to make this podcast, as we want to spread this as to as many people as we can and get info on tennis and whatever their journey has been. So it's open for everyone. And yeah, thanks for having us being with us today.
No, yeah, absolutely. It's gonna be fun. All right, let's get into it, dude. Sid, I'm excited for this.
Yeah, Jeevan, so I'll go straight into it. I want to ask you, obviously, you've been on the circuit for a lot of years. You've been a professional tennis player for a lot of years now. You've obviously had your shares
Mm-hmm.
of ups and downs. Let
Mm-hmm.
me start by this year. Obviously, this year, as people who follow you, your fans and supporters, they know this year hasn't been the best for you in
Mm-hmm.
terms of tennis ranking, whatever. And how would you describe this year so far?
Yeah, I think like you said, ups and downs. There were some highs for sure as well. I've been playing doubles now for about, I think this is my eighth or ninth season fully committed to playing doubles, and yeah, this is part of the package. You sign up for the good and you sign up for the bad as well. I personally don't even look at it as bad. I think it's just all part of the process, part of a bigger picture, which I think is finding out your best level as a tennis player. And some of that requires some hard decisions, whether you're moving along a curve which you're happy with or not. And I've had to take a few tough decisions this year based on that. And of course, yeah, immediate success has not come since then. But I think, yeah, I feel good about my game. I feel healthy. I feel excited to play. So yeah, let's see how the year finishes and how the next year brings.
Awesome.
Awesome. You've been one of India's best for a very long time. You've been playing for so long. You've been consistent in terms of not just your performance, but also in the rankings. Do you think the selection in the Davis Cup or Asian Games or any team event, do you think it's always fair?
I think that's a very broad answer to give. I think it's not about there's no perfect answer, because there's no one's ever going to be happy with a selection. You have to pick a certain number of players, but I think the federation tries to do whatever they can. I think the idea of having a committee um, to select people is one of the many steps which need to happen to make the selection process as fair as possible. I don't think anyone's ever going to be 100% happy with it, but I think the more involved the selection committee is with the players, with their day-to-day training, with what they're up to, I think we're going to be closer and closer to having our best team play every time. For example, I don't think we put a foot wrong in the recent tie against Switzerland. I think we did a great job putting
Right.
Dakshineshwar in for singles. It was, to a tennis player, a very obvious decision, but it's still a brave one to take, to put somebody who's in college to play a match. I don't think we've done that since probably Somdev and maybe Sanam's era of playing college tennis as well as Davis Cup. So I think sometimes you get it right, sometimes you get it wrong. But I think everybody's trying to get India to win a match. I think that's the overriding theme. And if that's what the goal is for the federation as well as the players, then we can't blame anyone for trying.
No, I mean
Uh,
you mentioned it right. The Switzerland tie, obviously, they didn't put a foot wrong, which is good to see, and that's what we want to see. Like, people getting respected. If you're a good collegiate athlete, also you belong to the highest level, and that's what Wimbledon does to a lot of the Brits also. So that was good to see. My next question to you is more on a personal level, and your choice of choosing doubles partners. You mentioned
Hmm.
that you've been on the pro tour for a long time. You've obviously played with numerous amount of partners and stuff like that. Can you tell for viewers and aspiring doubles players your strategy when it comes to choosing a doubles partner for you?
Yeah, I think that's the number one rule for doubles. I always tell all the colleagues and people that I've talked to about doubles. The number one thing about doubles is this: the biggest and most important thing is who you pick as your partner. It doesn't matter how well you're playing or what kind of form you're in. The partner makes the biggest difference because it not only affects 25% of the outcome, but also 100% of your mood on the court, which it matters to a lot of people. Uh, you could go certain seasons, certain matches. I've heard stories of a lot of top teams who don't talk to each other but can win big titles, but stuff like that never really lasts. And I don't think you really remember those moments at the end of the day. Of course, it feels nice to win tournaments, but you have to enjoy the journey. I think that's a much bigger picture that a lot of people seem to forget along the way. But I think, yeah, to answer your question about I don't think it's numerous partners that I've had. I would think that it requires a lot of trial and error to find out what works. One overriding theme is I've always had longer partnerships with my friends. I think that's important because you spend a lot of time on and off the court with that person. There are a lot of meals together, lots of downtime, waiting at airports, train stations, bus stations with that person. So I think it's important that you get along with them. That's one important factor. Then from a tennis angle, then you look at your matchups, and I look at my strengths and my weaknesses, and I try to find somebody who would complement them both ways. So, who would enhance my strengths and not show so much of my weaknesses as well. So I would think I've had most success with players who have had it's pretty obvious if you serve big, it would be great to be. That's one of the best qualities to have in a partner. But I think somebody who can give me a lot of returns because I'm pretty active at the net. I move around quite a lot, and anybody who's been consistent at giving me returns, especially from the ad court, that's been, I think, the number one factor that I've looked at. I've played doubles on both sides. I've played on the deuce as well as the ad, but I I think my best results and my best doubles comes in from the deuce court. It takes a while to realize these things because I'm sure all you guys are doing the same thing, trying to figure out what side can I bring out my best result, all these things. But that's why I feel like it was a very, how do I say, um, very like a full circle moment for me to win a tournament on the deuce court finally after so many years with Vijay because that really brought some perspective to or some confidence to my own train of thought on my abilities because to have always started your doubles career with a 250 title on the ad court with somebody like Rohan Bopana would make you think, yeah, let's stay on that side for the rest of your career. But to take the chance to go back to the deuce side and play there and win a tour event on the other side with somebody who is a fantastic doubles player, but he's not Rohan Bopana. Like it's a big difference to win a tour event with Rohan and to win with Vijay. So I really like the fact that partnerships like that where you really thought things through and that gives you something to really look forward to when all the dust is settled to remember that you won a tour event together really meant a lot to me and brought me a lot of confidence as well.
That's nice. You covered our next question also about how special it was for you to win the 250 with Vijay. Obviously, you guys have been friends for a really long time, and to win it with someone you really care and your friends are with, it was really special. And that came after a long time since you won with Bopana.
Yeah, no,
So
I can talk about that all the time, Sid. That's something that I'll never forget because it's not easy. There were a lot of doubters, a lot of self doubt as well. When I talk about big serving and
mm,
partnerships which have brought me success in the past. On paper, nobody would have really thought that Vijay and me are capable of winning a title, beating I think the last year's Wimbledon champions.
yeah.
No, the current Wimbledon champions actually. So beating the current Wimbledon champions along the road to winning a tournament is special. It really spoke a lot about the commitment to what we're trying to achieve as a team. And we didn't have success right away. We lost a lot of first rounds together. Even in the Challenger Tour, we did not have a lot of success. I think we won our first tour event before we won our first Challenger, which was not the usual sequence of things how it goes. But yeah, it's special because I also traveled with my wife for the first week after getting married, so it was something I'll never forget. So Vish was there, and that feeling of winning a tournament and going and hugging your partner who's been there, heard the stories, heard everything about what it's like to play a tour event, and knowing the fact that this only happened twice in my career in the last 9 years. Yeah, it's I can always go on about that, but I think it really spoke a lot about the commitment that Vijay and I put into the court when we were together playing together.
Yeah, just to follow up to that, I mean, you said you've had a lot of success with Vijay and you guys were doing really well. A question to most of the tennis fans, including me, is why didn't you continue or why did you decide to discontinue? Was there a stretch somewhere you felt the need of switching partners, or what was the thought process behind it?
I think we were just in different phases of our life, to be honest. It was nothing more than that. We just, the certain things that I needed from the partnership, I wasn't getting, and certain things he needed, I wasn't able to provide as well. So we had a talk about that on where we are with our lives and how much longer we can keep playing and what would be the best outcome considering. I think, once you've won a tour event and you've been inside the top 100 for a fair bit, it's not about can you do that, it's about can you make a run in a grand slam. And that's kind of, it requires, in our opinion or in my opinion, something that was missing in the team for that next step. And it was not an easy decision, but I don't know if I would ever get there, but I know that I will never regret knowing that I tried everything possible to make runs in grand slams.
Fair enough.
Great answer. You've always been on tour for a very long time. You of course faced a lot of difficult situations. What would you say that what has been your hardest moment in your tennis career?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I don't know about. Yeah, I've loved the journey, man. Like, I don't think there have been that many. I don't look at it as that kind of a hard moment as such in any part of my career. But if I had to pick something, it would have to be trying to play out of the lockdown. I think that was the hardest part because my ranking was pretty good. I think 2019, I was at my career high at 64 in 2019. And of course, we all know what happened in 2020. So when I actually played tennis again, it was 2021. So from career high 2019 to starting tennis with something that they tried called a COVID protected ranking at 194 was tough. My ranking had dropped down to about very close to outside top 250, I think about 240. And at the time, I started playing with Purav, and we had a very real conversation about, yeah, if you're going to drop outside 250, then I think it's time to move on to the next phase of life. Back in 2021, and yeah, that took a lot of perseverance, I think, to keep playing, and we won some titles together. We stuck together for about 6 more months before we moved on to different parts of our life again. And yeah, that moment of lockdown and being stuck in Singapore, for example, when I tried to go and play a 250 during the lockdown time when the tour just started, I was sitting in the flight next to somebody who tested positive for COVID. Uh, I I myself never tested positive, but the rule at the time in Singapore was if you're within the first 3 rows or the first 4 rows, front or back of anyone that tests positive, they would kind of snatch you, take you out of the tournament, take you into quarantine and stuff. So it just so happened that the guy that was sitting 3 rows in front of me tested positive, so they had to pull me out of the draw. That was not even the hard part. The hard part was the fact that they put me in a hard quarantine, which meant you're stuck in a hotel room without a window for the next 14 days. So you can't walk out of your room, which was very very difficult. And I think 14 days having like a 150 square feet space to move was tough. And trying to play immediately after that, I remember running and pulling my groin like the first 1 week. Outside of that, an injury happened immediately. And yeah, so being outside of 200, getting shut down from playing tennis for 2 weeks followed by an injury. Yeah, that phase in 2021, right after COVID and right after the world was moving on, was I think the hardest part. It was nothing to do with the tennis because once we were playing, I know that part of the journey is winning and losing and going up and down the rankings. But that's the easy part. I don't consider that as a hard part of life at all because you're going to win some, you're going to lose some.
Man, that's
Right.
crazy. I remember this because you had posted something on Facebook about that, and I was very young back then. I remember this, and I was going to ask you this if that was the hardest part. You already have had, as a tennis player, we've all had our thoughts about quitting the sport at some point because it gets super hard. And just listening to you, I'm pretty sure whoever's listening to you can just keep listening to you because the stories you have and the journeys you've been through, I mean, and any other tennis player who's been playing for that long is insane. I just want you to like give me more stories about hardships and how tough the sport is for people to actually understand on the outside. Like the life of a tennis player is not easy. There's a misconception where people say like, okay, he's traveling the world and he's getting to see so many places, but at the end of the day, if you lose, I mean, you're not getting paid, so you have to fight for your bread. If you lose, it's not like a team sport, where you lose and
Right.
you're still on a salary. What are your thoughts on tennis and tennis in India?
I think, yeah, just to touch a little bit more on that Singapore story, what I had posted on Facebook was I remember coming in and looking at the ceiling in that room,
Mm-hmm.
and there was a very interesting kind of light. It was a circular light that had rings around it.
Mm.
And I think the rings added up to, I think, about 14 rings or something like that on the top. So every day I would put a story that said day one, day two, day three, just looking at the ceiling from the bed. Uh, and then around day seven or day eight, I realized that the housekeeping is not doing the greatest of jobs, because if I told you what I found under my bed after a week in that room, I don't think you'd want to add the rest of that story. So like that's one part of the tennis stories that I think a lot of people might say, oh yeah, it's a fancy hotel, but fancy hotels, when you don't know what's under the bed sheet, after a while, it's not easy to stay there when you can't even leave the room or can't even ask them to clean it.
Yeah.
But touching on the finances part that you were saying, I can share a story with you. You guys from 2019, I think, again, the year I was doing pretty well, had my career high and everything. Uh, I think Austin Krajicek and myself. No, wait, let me start that story again. It was 2018 when I was playing with Krajicek, and we had just made the final of the tournament in Chengdu. I think we had played against Dodik and Mate Pavic and Dodik in the final. Great week, lost in the final. And at that time, the next week I wanted to play was a 125. At the time, it was new to have a 125. It's a lot of points.
Mhm.
But the tournament was in Mexico, in Monterrey, Mexico, and I'm in Chengdu, China. So I'm in China. I have to go around the world to Mexico. And China, if you guys know now, that Hangzhou Chengdu week, it finishes late.
Yeah.
So you leave on a Sunday night to try to get there on a Tuesday night to play your match on Wednesday. And I remember something happened with my flight where we could not board. There were a bunch of connections somewhere in Chengdu to Osaka to Atlanta, from Atlanta to Los Cabos. There was a bunch of connections, and something didn't click, like how it always happens. And I remember calling my sister and saying,
Yeah.
I have to buy the ticket again. Like I'm not going to make it. And I remember at the time, that week I was playing with my partner at the time said, it's completely okay if you can't come because I'm here. And I said, no, I think I'm not really sure if I can or I want to come, but I don't want to leave you hanging. And it's a Monday and it's 20 minutes to the sign in, and I had to drop. I remember clearly, like I called my sister and said, "It's $1,800 to go one way across the world now because it's a fresh ticket." And at that, it might not sound in like a lot or like a tough decision when you think about it now, but to to think you're going to go and compete in a challenger and give $2,000, which is half of what you would get if you win the tournament, to just give yourself an opportunity, that was such a hard decision, because I'm like, am I just blowing the money I just made from such a good tournament in Chengdu into just trying to play the next week, and little things like that. And yeah, that's where I would say that the family commitment and support, we talk about it, but this is a good example of saying, just go, just go play. My sister said, just try, don't, you'll obviously regret the fact that if you don't go there and things like that. And so yeah, we ended up buying a new ticket, got there, reached there on a late Tuesday night to only serve on the morning of Wednesday and play a match on Wednesday evening. And that week was even more special than any other title, I think, in my challenger, let's say, repertoire of titles, because that one was the one where I never really wanted to go to play, and we ended up winning that tournament, and actually an unforgettable final, because I played one of my let's say, doubles heroes on the court, Leander in the final. So I think this all started from just a lot of self doubt, like what everybody has, and someone pushing you, someone giving you a little nudge, saying, "Go try it," and things like that work out. And that's what I would say, that when it looks like you really cannot find a way out, and you can come out with a story that you'll remember 5 6 years later, 10 years later. That's what the jet tennis journey gives a lot of people, which you take into the real life once whenever you're done. And that's why you try to make as many of these stories as possible before your time has come on the court.
Well said, because finances are, the biggest part of tennis, and I want to jump into the finance part right now because a lot of players are struggling with finance, and we want to keep talking about this topic. I know we've mentioned it previously in our podcast and in our episodes before about the struggle of money and the lack of federation support in India. I want to ask you a hypothetical question. Maybe it is something you
Mm-hmm.
can achieve or be in the future. If you were the secretary or at the post of AITA right now, what are the first three changes you're going to bring into the federation in your perspective?
The first thing I would do is hire more people in the executive committee who are not just in this broad scale term of ex tennis players, but I'd say players who are relevant in the last 5 years. Like, set some kind of timeline and not talk about dinosaurs who are in the committee who are so-called tennis players. I respect them all. I think that they're on the right target, but it's a very cutthroat sport. So if you're not sitting in that position of responsibility, connected to your everyday events of what these players are going through, what Siddhant is doing in Fairfield, and why Parikshit is not in Shenzhen, and where is Dakshineshwar playing next week after winning a singles and doubles title this week in Winston-Salem. Like, you got to know everything on the top of your head if you're sitting in that committee, and not just show up for the good times, which is the actual Davis Cup tie.
Mhm.
I think that's the first thing I would do. I would make sure that committee of people, I'm okay with whoever is on it for now, because the fact of the matter is I don't even know who are the actual people sitting in the committee. But if they are more committed to understanding what the tennis players are doing every week, I think it would give a lot of security to the players as well, because you feel like you're part of a bigger journey of making tennis better, and not just seeing their faces when it comes to these great weeks like an Asian Games or like a Davis Cup or what have you. Everyone's going to talk to you when you win Hangzhou. That's not the problem, or when you win a gold medal in Asian Games. But I think that person sitting there has a lot of responsibility sitting in the committee. So that's the first thing I would change. The second thing I would do is I like the idea of having the ranking based points given out. Sorry, finances given out to players. It's quite simple. It's not rocket science. A lot of people are up and down about this, but for me, it's, hey, you coach wherever you want, you train, you do whatever you want. If it works out to go to college, go to college. If it works out to go to a private academy, I don't want to get involved in that. But I think scheduling tournaments as a junior is very important, because it will help you schedule tournaments as a professional. So I think that's the second thing. I would just say, look, if you're ranked X in under 16 or Y in under 18, you get this much of allowance. You get this much that you can spend towards your tennis. And I wouldn't give it out as cash. I would say give it out as show me the receipts that you spent
Yeah,
on your career,
reimbursement.
rather than just giving them cash and saying, go buy the next pair of Yeezys or whatever people talk about. Like, let's not do it that way. Yeah, so that's the two things. And another thing I would really want to talk about is, I would not say we have a problem with infrastructure in India. I think that's something that's a lot of people might complain about. I think we are fine, because if Novak Djokovic can make it to world number one from a freaking war-ridden country at the time, Yugoslavia. I remember this guy from Junior Davis Cup, best attitude possible, just happy to be at Junior Davis Cup, dancing, singing, beating all the players that at the time was 15 years old, ranked 500 in the world. And everyone wanted to talk to him because he had this huge, bright personality, and he's coming from nothing. Like, he's coming from Yugoslavia at that time. And he's able to find so much of joy in playing. I think it's something to do with a lack of passion for the kids who are playing right now. And I think I wouldn't blame the parents, but I have to kind of blame them a little bit, saying, look, tennis is not that bad of a career when you look back at it, because it may not show you something as far as prize money with your actual career, but it can definitely provide you with multiple avenues to make a living post tennis after your attempt at being a professional tennis player. You could coach, you can invest, you have life experience. I think most tennis players, I'm not really worried about a professional tennis player figuring out his way in life once he's done with it, because you learn a lot
So
along the
you would
way.
just
So
advertise tennis in a better way.
I think so. I would say that it's not about the infrastructure. I think it's
Yeah.
more about letting the parents know that this is not that bad of a career just because you don't get 5 crores in an auction.
Hmm.
That does not mean success. Like we have seen a lot of ridiculous comments by people who make 5 6 crores in an auction in other sports, and it doesn't mean that they're the greatest or the best set example for what it's like to
Yeah.
succeed in life. So that's why I think that's another thing. I think that if the mindset changes to look for the parents to realize that tennis is a good career to pursue, it's a great sport to play. We would have more people trying to be a professional tennis player. If we can just increase that number, then the odds are in our favor. We have the population and we have the infrastructure. There's no problem. We can figure out how to train at 5 a.m. if needed, and how to train at 5 p.m. and make this work with whatever we have. But I think that system of dedicated coaches and dedicated personnel in going hand in hand with the parents, that's what's missing, not the actual tennis court or the gym or the shower or the locker room. Those things are fine.
Yep. Yep.
All right. Coming to tournaments in India, we have a good challenger circuit. Of course, we want more of those, but we have four tournaments back to back,
Hmm.
in which most of all the
Do
top
we?
doubles guys.
When do we have them? Because I don't know about this.
Even I
Sorry.
don't remember.
Yeah, okay,
They
you
come
can
and
you know
go.
something we don't know. What do we know? Which one are you
I mean,
talking
you're
about?
obviously higher ranked, so you probably play just one of those. But I mean,
Oh, you're
most of the
talking
other
about what
doubles
had
guys,
happened. What had happened. Okay, okay.
what had happened? Yeah.
Like what just went, but not the circuit, the schedule that's coming out. Okay, okay.
No, no, yeah, yeah. So out of which I think all most of the doubles guys, we play those, and we, to a lot of extent, we do make the most of it. Of course, the wildcards help, but a lot of singles players, there have been talks that they've kind of wanted more of smaller challenges or more futures, because most of them are just relying on wildcards. And in this year's challengers, we had only Mukund Sasikumar, winning a round in the main draw in all of 4 weeks. What would you say? You think we need more futures, more challenges, of course, but you think we need more futures in general,
Uh,
or more
I
tournaments overall?
Yeah, I mean that's the easy answer. Just we need more tournaments because yeah, I can see the players' point of view of saying we're not making runs in challenges. But uh, from whatever I've seen from my years of experience, whatever the humble experience of playing a few years of tennis, the fact of the matter is if you can't win in the challenger tour, then don't bother trying to be a professional tennis player. It's that simple. Like I won my fair share of futures. I don't know how many I won, but I've done well enough in the futures tour to, like you said, reach top 300 in singles. But that still doesn't mean that I could have a career that's relevant to Grand Slams in singles. So I think we need tournaments in India. I don't know about this futures or challengers or anything like that. I'd rather not bracket it as what we need. I'd say we need tournaments where these guys are competing all the time against good players. Uh, I'm not. I would suggest playing a domestic circuit in India, which was relevant, which has good prize money. That would definitely help because it's just matches, and then uh, UTR is not a bad thing that we should consider having in India because the more we have competition with good prize money, I can see foreigners would want to come and try to play at a $20,000 event if it was in UTR, for example. It would help with sharpening your knives as a tennis player in India without having to think about futures or challenges or what have you. And then when you learn how to win these matches, and even if you're winning 5 matches or 4 matches at a UTR level or something like that, for example, I think you're ready to compete then. And because the fact of the matter is, if you have the game, it doesn't take you long to move up the rankings. So I don't think you need to really grow yourself in the future circuit for 5 6 years and tell yourself, hey, I'm not able to make it past 500 because I didn't get to play enough futures. No, it's probably because you're just not good enough to move past 500 for the last 5 years. That's just what I look at it as, because you need to play a lot of matches. You need to stay sharp. That would help if we had that in India, and it doesn't need to be a future or a challenger. It could be anything, but I want good competition where people are knowing what it's like to play 5 all 30 all second serve with old balls. 5-3 in the third with new balls, how to serve it out, how to put returns in at 5-4, whatever. Like these type of scenarios, if you can get to see that more often against good players, then I think you're ready to compete. That's what really matters. And then, like I said, you win a few. Like let's see how long it takes Dakshin, for example, to move up the rankings because he's playing tennis. He's competing.
Yeah.
He's winning futures in the States. I don't think he's gonna have a complaint saying, "Well, India doesn't have futures, so I'm not able to do well." Like that's not how it goes. I think if you're good enough, you're going to find a way to move up the rankings fast, and it's not about futures or challengers. It's about playing tournaments, competing, learning how to win under pressure. And then when you know that, when you have that trick mastered, I think you can move up the rankings quickly because the point structure is there in singles to move up. I don't think it's that difficult if you can start winning in challengers.
Yeah.
To be very honest, it's much harder in doubles. To move up the rankings in doubles is 10 times harder than singles. And I don't think, and I will fight that argument with any singles player who says it's harder to move up in doubles. It's bullshit. It's way harder to move up in doubles simply because there's more points and more players traveling and playing every week.
Yeah,
Fair point.
absolutely.
Fair point.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, so there's a lot you can change as the head of AITA from what I can recall from this meeting. Tournament structures, finances, everything. Just we want to end up with a fun question, just a hypothetical question, one more question. Post-retirement plans for Jeevan. Is Jeevan trying to become a tennis coach? And if yes, how much is he charging per week for a tennis player? Because we are actively looking for coaches at the moment. I'm pretty sure most of the guys in India, including people at the top, we don't have a coach. So how much is Jeevan's price per week?
The, to answer your first question, Jeevan is not coaching after playing tennis. That's for sure. That's not happening. Simply because I don't see myself running an academy and coaching that way. I feel like a lot of guys are into it right now, and I hope that they are able to bring out some great tennis players. And if I did coach, I would honestly only want it to be in a symbiotic relationship with the association because I did benefit a lot by meeting good coaches when I traveled as a top junior, under 14, under 16. The coaches that I met then made a big difference in my career until I went to college. Yeah, I did improve a lot because I did meet Balu sir when I was 14, and it did make a big difference. I moved to Pune. I trained with him. I saw tennis in a different angle by doing little things like that, and I'd love to be that type of coach to the next up and coming player. Just give out advice and if they need it, and not. I don't think I still don't see myself as sitting and doing the day to day let's say grind of being a coach. It's not the easiest thing to do that morally well, let's put it that way. I feel like there's a lot of responsibility when you say you're a tennis coach, and I don't see myself doing that after my tennis career, but I can see myself helping the association and helping junior kids in some way, maybe by running some tournaments.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer in playing as many tournaments as possible to learn how to handle difficult situations in matches. That's something I would want to contribute towards.
Fair enough. Well,
So,
thank
but if you
you.
want me to travel with you, I'll do it for free, dude. Don't worry about that.
Awesome. Now I know about
I'm very
numbers.
happy with this answer.
Yeah. That I'm not charging anybody to practice doubles. Trust me.
Yeah.
Parikshit knows that.
K Resort, that's the place
Yeah,
you want to
exactly.
be.
Yeah. K Resort. Eventually, we can use it as a training base.
Awesome.
For sure, for sure.
Well, thanks, Jeevan. Thanks for being with us today. That was a good talk, and it sucks that it's only 40 minutes and we could go longer than that. But it was great chatting with you, and thanks for spending some time with us.
No, thank you guys. Thank you,
Thanks a
Parikshit.
lot,
Thank you,
Jeev.
Siddhant. Yeah, thank you, boys, for having me on the show. It's great to see your personality come out in shows like this, and all the best. You're asking great questions, and I hope you guys get more exciting guests than myself for the next episodes. Looking forward.